The empire's on the run. Alex Jones and the GCN Radio Network.
You've heard about the essential qualities of iodine when it comes to your well-being, and you've read the opinions of top experts regarding this good member of the halogen family. Still, reports indicate that iodine is absent in sufficient amounts from the daily lives of countless people worldwide. Now, our extra-strength new nascent iodine formula is here. Survival Shield X2, leading the way into the next generation of super high-quality nascent iodine. InfoWars Life Survival Shield X2 is derived from 200+ million-year-old salt solutions found more than 7,000 feet below the Earth's surface. The result is a unique nascent iodine that is both concentrated and free of unwanted additives, genetically modified ingredients, and completely vegan. We even pre-screen our Survival Shield X2 iodine for radiation. Pure, clean, and sourced from deep within the Earth, X2 nascent iodine is available exclusively at InfoWarsLife.com, InfoWarsStore.com, or call 1-888-253-3139.
Open your eyes. It's time to give your eyes a powerful nutritional boost. Sight is the primary input to the brain, arguably making eyesight the most important sense we have. And just like the other important organs in our bodies, our eyes function at peak levels when they are fed the proper amounts of essential nutrition. Open your eyes. Combining key ingredients like vitamin A, zinc, lutein, proprietary saffron bulb extracts, and more, OcuPower by InfoWars Life is the new formulation specifically designed to nutritionally assist the natural function of healthy eyes. Optimize the natural power of your eyes with the latest addition to the super high-quality InfoWars Life formulations, OcuPower. Go to InfoWarsLife.com or InfoWarsStore.com to order OcuPower or call 1-888-253-3139. OcuPower. Open your eyes.
DNA Force. When cells become toxic, they die early and aging sets in. DNA Force. No one has put together a formula that focuses directly on brain health, nerve growth factors, and optimizing your cellular energy at the same time. Just one of the key compounds, BioPQQ, is backed by major clinical studies. DNA Force. We now have the synergistic solution. Secure your DNA Force today at InfoWarsLife.com or call toll-free 888-253-3139. DNA Force.
The government's Department of Homeland Security is buying up loads of ammo. At the same time, they're restricting civilians' rights to own and purchase firearms. Can you put two and two together? Infidel Body Armor can stop every round, including hollow points and .308 sniper rounds. Is reasonably priced and fully legal. But for how long? Go to InfidelBodyArmor.com, spelled INFIDEL bodyarmor.com. Infidel Body Armor. Just won't quit.
We've got it. This transmission is coming to you.
Waging war on corruption.
All right, you are go.
It's Alex Jones, coming to you live from the front lines of the Info War.
We're back live, Friday edition of the Alex Jones Show, talking to Syrian girl, otherwise known as Mimi Al-Naham. Your calls coming shortly. Huffington Post. Global warming created ISIS. Yes, that was an actual article in the Huffington Post. You see, there was a drought in Syria from 2006 to 2010. And they claim that happened because of climate change, even though droughts worldwide over the last 30 years are down. They blamed this drought for being responsible for the rise of jihadists in Syria and ISIS, even though ISIS was not even formed in Syria. Of course, it was formed in Iraq. So these climate change alarmists are now actually blaming global warming for the rise of jihadists in Syria. Mimi Al-Ham, of course, nothing to do with the fact that the US armed the jihadists in the first place, that they trained ISIS members in Jordan, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, Turkey, bankrolled them to the hilt. It can all be explained by global warming. What do you think of that?
Well, even the drought itself wasn't caused by global warming. It was caused by the Turkish president damming the river that runs into Syria in order to destabilize the Syrian government. and he's on record for saying, telling the previous president, Hafez al-Assad, not this current one, that, your people can drink sand. And that is the reason for the drought in Syria. It wasn't global warming in the first place. The Turkish government did this purposely to get people, to get the Syrian economy weakened and to get people angry. And it continues to be Turkish policy and the US government policy that leads to these jihadist groups and has led to groups like ISIS. And, interestingly, the Turkish government now are talking about having invasion plans into Syria, using ISIS as an excuse and saving the Kurds as an excuse. Because of the problems now happening on the Turkish border. 200,000 Kurds have crossed into Turkey now, Syrian Kurds crossing into Turkey. And of course, Turkey actually doesn't like having Kurds coming into Turkey because they see Kurds as a potential threat and separatists. And as a result, that is probably one of the reasons they are worrying about what's happening in Syria right now. And they, in fact, the Turkish war leaks in 6 months ago revealed, where Erdogan's ministers were talking about war plans in Syria, that they were going to use ISIS in a false flag operation on a Turkish tomb and to try to get some excuse to go into Syria. And that's all on YouTube. You can have a look at it. And as a result, Erdogan actually shut YouTube down that day just to prevent his people from listening to it just before the election.
Okay, we're going to get back into ISIS soon with the callers, but we're running low on time now, so let's get into Gamergate. This is an amazing topic that's kind of slipped under the radar over the past month or so. It began in August, and this is an attempt by individuals to hijack the video game industry to implant social engineering and basically brainwashing messages. Explain how that emerged.
Well, actually, Gamergate is a very, very interesting and promising sort of Twitter phenomenon that's going on right now. It's a hashtag on Twitter of gamers who have actually been able to expose collusion between the media and a think tank called DIGRA, which is supported by DARPA, the military and government ministry. So this DARPA is providing money to this think tank called DIGRA that's specializing in sort of injecting social engineering into video games. And they're trying to sort of say, apply their sort of multiple genders, as we saw in Facebook, and they call them social justice warriors, sort of a fake pseudo-feminism, taking up the cause of racism, feminism, and all of those things, not in real support of equality, but to try to pit races and genders against each other. And what's happened is that these gamers have rejected these people and have been sort of starting to make connections between the video game journalism, these think tanks, and certain video game developers that are creating games specifically to social engineer people. One of those is, her name is, I forget her first name, but her last name is Quinn.
Zoe Quinn, yeah.
Zoe Quinn, exactly. And they sort of exposed her connections. And after that, all across all the game journalists, they wrote down the same story. Gamers are dead. The game development industry should ignore their market and start producing games that are politically correct and no longer consider what the gamers themselves want, but sort of what the think tanks and the academics and the social engineers want them to produce. And all the journalists seem to be colluded on that. And what's going on now is these gamers have a mission now to expose these think tanks and these connections with what they themselves, what even the CEO of a big game industry called Electronic Arts called in his memo the establishment elite. The establishment elite have injected themselves into movies, film, television, into social media to try to socially engineer society, and it seems that they haven't completely controlled the game industry. They have to some degree in the military aspect of it, but not in the social aspect of it, and that's what they're trying to do right now.
And that's all about shifting the propaganda over from news to entertainment, because they know a lot of young people are turned off by the news, so now they're shifting it, as you said, into video games, movies, television shows. And this is red flag, bombshell proof of a deliberate attempt to undermine and hijack the video games industry to implant that politically correct social engineering. It's a story we're going to be covering more in the future, but now we're going to go to calls for Syrian Girl. We got Habu in Wisconsin. Go ahead, Habu, you're on the air.
Thank you very much for the opportunity, and I always learn something listening to Syrian Girl, so you're very enlightening to the people here. You know, let me just have a comment, and I'll be very quick, and then I'll ask you a question. I do believe the U.S. has an obligation to put armed forces on the ground, coordinated with the Syrian forces and the Iraqi forces, to drive out these, or to corner these people. In my estimation, with the superior American air power, this should be a pretty straightforward thing, and in under 6 months, this would be done. So my question to Syrian Girl, there's just two quick questions. One, do you think President Assad is really setting himself up for regime change as this bombing just morphs and kind of encroaches upon his power centers, meaning the air? And the second thing is, I think that the present Iraqi constitution should be torn up and written anew so that it embraces all different types of people in Iraqi society, which it doesn't do now. So thank you very much for the courtesy, and keep on enlightening the world, Syrian Girl.
Thank you so much for your kind words. You know, in principle, the idea of the U.S. and Syria coordinating against these extremist groups like ISIS, you know, that might be a good idea, but in fact, I think that U.S. troops on the ground anywhere in the Middle East, it's just going to exacerbate matters. U.S. troops on the ground would only embolden these groups into fighting and gaining more recruits and believing that their cause is the right cause. And I think that with everything that the U.S. has been doing in the region, especially since they've been supporting these Islamist groups that are extreme in Libya as well as Syria, you know, they really don't have any agenda to actually fight ISIS. ISIS is basically the monster they created in order to have an excuse, some kind of excuse to intervene. I think that, you know, the Syrian people, we don't want any foreigners on the ground. We don't need any help. All we need is for the people who are supporting these groups and who are arming the insurgents to stop undermining the state, to stop undermining the military, and then we can take care of it ourselves. We can clear things up in a few months, and our military is more than capable of doing that. They just have to stop the money flow, and that would be all. But I do think that the U.S. strikes on Syria right now, just as I said, it's not so much about fighting ISIS. As we've seen, ISIS is still gaining ground. They're still gaining recruits, even more so now. So it's not really about fighting ISIS. I think it does still have a lot to do with regime change. And finally, about the Iraqi constitution, you know, the Iraqi constitution was written during the U.S. occupation of Iraq. And I know that James Steele and Robert Ford had an agenda to create a civil war in Iraq, to put Sunnis and Shiites against each other, and to eventually balkanize the country. And they wrote up the constitution themselves, and the majority, like the only part of the Iraqi society voted for it. So it was divisive to begin with, and I totally agree with you on the Iraqi constitution on that point.
Slim in Canada, you're on the air with Syrian Girl. Go ahead, Slim.
Hi, Syrian Girl. First of all, Eid Mubarak. And oh, you're welcome. My question is regarding ISIS. A while back, I used to be a gamer myself. It's funny you guys mention that. The gaming industry, I used to play this game called Call of Duty. And there used to be this, you could create clans. And the strongest and most vast clan in that game when I played it a few years ago was ISIS. I don't know if that's a coincidence or what's going on, but with respect to them being like just basically a cult, they are basically just a death cult. To me, that's what my opinion of them. And the fact that they have the name the Islamic State is just, you know, a slap in the face for everybody as far as I'm concerned. What do you guys think about that?
Your comment, Syrian Girl.
I think